If you have seen my previous videos on the Sig P320 line of pistols, you know that I've become a big fan of these handguns. I have two of these on the table today that are now my primary duty level sidearms, replacing my longtime carried Glock 17 on my tactical holster. The primary reasons why I use the Sig P320s is due to the modular fire control system that allows you to configure your pistol to your desired needs all the way from the sights all the way down to the grips, as you can see with mine. One of the other primary reasons is that these pistols are excellent and ready to use right out of the box. For this means no trigger jobs, no sight modifications, no major grip modifications, unlike Glocks where the grips are serialized compared to the Sig where only the fire control unit is serialized on the gun. Originally introduced back in 2014, the P320 line hit major notoriety in 2017 when it won the U.S. military contract for the M17 and M18. These military versions were different than the civilian versions due to the military requirement of a manual safety. Even to this day, at the time of filming, only the military M17 and M18 clones are offered with a manual safety factory from Sig. As you may have heard or read about over the past year, there's been a number of unintentional discharges with the P320, many of which involving police officers while carrying the P320 as their duty weapon. These have resulted in videos and even lawsuits that the Sig P320 is not safe to carry fully loaded. Most of these discharges, by the way, happen when holstering the weapon. And for a growing number of people who like to carry their handguns with a round in the chamber, this has resulted in a lot of questions and concerns, including reports of some officers who now will only carry their P320s in a condition 3 state as traditional 0 state, which is by having a round in the chamber. So what does all this mean, and why hasn't Sig provided better options to help address this issue? In this video, I'm going to discuss one option that you can take now to help address this issue, with the hope that Sig will eventually offer this as an out-of-box solution moving forward. If you look closely at my two P320s on the table, you'll see that both my tactical as well as my carry versions of the pistol, neither are offered stock in this manner. My tactical pistol is an X-Full P320 with a Wilson combat grip module, which in my opinion is the best upgrade to a P320 and can be easily installed by almost anybody who owns this pistol within a matter of minutes. My carry pistol is the X series pistol with a combination of a 15-round compact Wilson combat grip module, a 3.9-inch barreled carry slide, and has the standard X-ray sights, which I love. To me, this is the ultimate Glock 19 replacement, and I wish Sig would offer this standard out of the factory. Both guns use the Sig X Series flat face trigger, which is excellent right out of the box. These triggers have a lighter trigger pull and a clean break. All my guns have been safety checked prior to this video. But if you've ever fired one of these, you can really tell the difference. And again, that's right out of the box and significantly improves accuracy. And this is important because it is this way out of the box. And it goes back to my time with the sheriff's office, who during training required that stock triggers on duty pistols because they said the last thing you want to do is to have to use your pistol and then have a prosecutor ask you, especially in front of an uneducated judge or jury, if your trigger has been modified in any way. This, in my honest opinion, is great advice, not only for officers, but for civilians alike, and why I prefer to have my duty weapon as stock as possible. Now, unlike some handguns, installing a stock Sig safety on a P320 requires some gunsmithing work. So unless you want to buy a M17 or M18, which I prefer the X series features instead better, you need to do what I did here. Fortunately, there's a growing number of companies that will now install these for you and even cut your frame to help accommodate for them. In my case, I used a company out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee called AB Prototype, that I was able to mail the grip module and fire control unit together and have them install and mail back with a fully installed stock manual safety, as you can see here on both of my Sigs. Now, there are three primary reasons why I wanted to install these on my Sig P320s. The first thing has to do with training, cock lock, and easy to use. When I was raised and trained on handguns, I was trained on a 1911. This is one of my first 1911s. And if you've ever fired a 1911, you know that you fire and you carry these things cocked and locked at all times. That means that the hammer is back and the safety is on until you're ready to fire. And then when you holster, it goes back and forth. So the point is, I had developed a muscle memory, like a lot of shooters did a long time ago, to carry a handgun cocked and locked, so that swiping of the thumb becomes very natural to me. In fact, when I first moved to striker fires, I found myself doing this a lot on my Glocks. With 1911s, you'll also notice that when you have the cock and lock, they do this because they have a very short and light trigger pull that necessitates a manual safety. So if you've ever fired a 1911, you'll know why they're so accurate, is because very light trigger pull. Even though it has a grip safety, it is still something that required a manual safety to safely carry with you. Otherwise, it would be dangerous to handle even with a grip safety. Well, when you compare them to, for example, a P320 trigger, the P320 trigger also has a short and light trigger pull, which is good. That's exactly what I want. Interestingly enough, my trigger pull on my first 1911 was around 4 pounds. You can get higher in 1911s now that have a lighter trigger pull, but my trigger pull stock on my Sig P320 is less than 3 pounds. So it's actually got a lighter trigger pull than my 1911. Now, the answer to safeties on striker fired pistols have historically been trigger safety blocks or dongles that you would see, or a combination of heavier trigger pulls. But I don't want a safety feature on my gun fighting me on my trigger pull. I'd rather have something that I can turn on or off before I have to pull the trigger, like on a 1911. So as you can see here, the safety on the P320 is also located in the relatively same position as a 1911. It's located close to the slide, so when I drop the slide, it activates and deactivates in a similar manner to my 1911. However, there's one advantage with the SIGs. The SIG manual safety is also located very close to my slide release. So when I click my slide release, it also deactivates at the safety at the same time, which is not something that I typically had, for example, on a 1911, where I would have my slide release would be in a different location than my manual safety, as well as even on my M&Ps, very similar model, where it was much farther forward than my manual safety. So that's one of the greatest advantages of the design of the Sig P320 manual safety, is it's so close to this release that it automatically goes off each time that I drop my slide. So again, that's one of the great advantages of the design of the Sig. The second reason why I wanted a manual safety on my P320 is my ability to confidently carry with a round in the chamber. In a previous video listed below, I explained the details of the 4 different carry conditions of carrying a handgun. Many experienced shooters argue that carrying guns should always have a round in the chamber so you can quickly draw and fire with one hand, freeing your other hand to potentially use to help defend against attackers. While this makes sense, many people, whether they admit it or not, still carry with an empty chamber out of the fears of a potential misfire. This means that you have to draw and rack a round, requires time as well as both hands, which can be deadly in a quick conflict. One of the reasons in my previous video, I had also mentioned why I encourage people to buy the Sig P365 with the manual safety, is because it is a lower profile, safer, and gives people more confidence to carry concealed in a condition 1 state with a round in the chamber, cocked and locked. Now back to the unintentional firing issues with the P320s that we see online and hear about in the news. In most cases, this happens when holstering a firearm. The easiest way to help prevent this from happening is to run a manual safety on your P320 and train to always cock and lock your pistol, especially when holstering your handgun. And much like the P365, the manual safety is relatively low profile and has a very positive action. So if you don't want to use it, simply don't use it. As you can tell, it's both ambidextrous as well as relatively low profile on the handgun. A third reason why I wanted a manual safety is the added safety in case the gun got turned on me. This final benefit of a manual safety on a duty gun is to really help prevent a gun from getting turned and used on you. Most criminals are not well trained on firearms use, and to them, a handgun is a Glock, which only requires that the trigger be pulled to fire. But if my handgun ever got turned on me, I know that most shooters would likely fumble with the handgun before they ever figured out that the safety is preventing them from pulling the trigger, if they even figured that out at all. These few split seconds could be exactly what I need in order to allow me to disarm the attacker, which is why I see it as an added safety device on a handgun that I carry. Now, for example, the analogy I commonly use with people is most people today joke that a stick shift on a car acts as a millennial anti-theft device. Well, for handguns, a safety can serve as a similar purpose, and that's how you should also look at this. So if you have a P320 now or are considering a P320, but have concerns about safety, carrying loaded and potential misfires, then a manual safety may be just what you need. It was for me, and if anybody at Sig is watching this video, I hope you take note and start offering these manual safeties on more of your X-Series pistols moving forward. It really is a great safety, even if the military made you do it first. If you like this video or like this channel, please subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.